Hello, this is Roland. Today I would like to read you something from The Imitation of Christ by Thomas Kempis, of which I've grown fond. Every morning I go to have coffee and I do a little reading, and then I do a little trigonometry. It's like some people do crossword puzzles, I do a little trigonometry, and then I read something from my Kindle Paperwhite. And I particularly enjoy reading a little bit of Thomas Kempis because I have a version that's in both Latin and English. So I read the Latin and then I read the English, and I just love it. The more a man hath unity. Of course, this is older English, so it means a man or a woman. The more a man or woman hath unity, and it uses hath, the old-fashioned English way of saying has, which I don't mind. The more a man hath unity and simplicity in himself, the more things and the deeper things he understands, and that without labor, because he receiveth the light of understanding from above. So, that's very beautiful. Let me continue. The spirit, which is pure, sincere, and steadfast, is not distracted, though it hath many works to do, because it doth all things to the honor of God, and striveth to be free from all thoughts of self-seeking. Who is so full of hindrance and annoyance to thee as thine own undisciplined heart? A man who is good and devout arranges beforehand within his own heart the works which he hath to do abroad, and so is not drawn away by the desires of his evil will, but subjects everything to the judgment of right reason. Who has a harder battle to fight than he who striveth for self-mastery? And this should be our endeavor, even to master self, and thus daily to grow stronger than self, and to go on unto perfection. Well, it's very beautiful. You could write a chapter or make a whole hour lecture on each one of these sentences or ideas. But let me just comment, and that is, this last one is so beautiful. And this should be our endeavor. In other words, self-mastery, even to master self, and thus daily to grow stronger than self, and to go on unto perfection. That's a very interesting passage. We shouldn't know anger. See, in the pristine state, we wouldn't know anger. We wouldn't know lust. We wouldn't know inordinate cravings of wanting things, inordinate thirsts and hungers, and inordinate desires. We wouldn't know them. And now we have them, and some of us wonder about them. In fact, all of us do when we're young. We wonder about these bodies that we have, and these impulses that we have, and these desires that seem to rule us, and these emotions that seem to rule us, or over which we have precious little control. We wonder about them. But then, see, if we just stayed with wondering about them, with a bit of modesty, to eat with moderation and drink, water and tea and so forth with moderation, and to express ourselves sexually within the bounds of holy matrimony, and to temper our anger with reason, and best not even to be angry. See, if we lived very modestly, and then if we just stayed with that and didn't try to decide, well, these lusts and so forth are good or they're bad. In other words, not judging them, but just wondering about them and seeking to understand them. And then one day we would have understanding, and we would see that it's the result of a fall. Okay? And we would also see that there had to be a beginning of these things, and it had some kind of a metaphysical aspect to it. For example, do you notice that when you become angry, that you become more lustful, or more hungry, or more thirsty? The angrier you get, the more resentful you get. See, the more excited you get, the more you become caught up with something. Then you notice these strange desires arising. You become more of an animal. Okay? And there are other things that will also bring that about. Excessive study, see, will also do it. Pride, in other words, excessive prideful study. But what he's saying here is that we strive for the mastery, that we recognize that these fallen bodies are basically the symbol of our fall. That they're the symbol of our fall. All these lusts, angers, and so forth. So they're definitely nothing to be prideful about. But on the other hand, if you judge them as being bad, which people in the past have done that too, haven't they? They've judged their natural, these impulses as being bad, and then they try to, put a straitjacket on themselves or punish themselves somehow. But that doesn't work. All it does is strengthen them. See, you can't. It's beyond nature. What you need is God's grace and the Spirit of God to soften, to mitigate, to restrain. See? Now you know yourself. You may have had moments when you were angry about something, maybe at your child. Let's say you were angry at your child because, I'll make up a story, okay? But it'll be illustrative. Mom is home and her daughter comes home from school. And her daughter goes to her room and she sees her daughter just sitting there playing with something or staring out the window or something rather. And not doing her homework. Not only that, but her room is a mess. And Mom is starting to become angry. See? And she's ready to rush in there and say, how many times have I told you? And if you don't do your homework, and so on. And she goes in, so she walks into the room, but then she sees a little tear in her daughter's eye. And all of a sudden, all of her plans of the big speech she was going to make go out the window. She says, what's wrong? And her daughter says, on the way home today, there were some bullies. And they pushed me down and they stole my backpack. Now all of a sudden, you see what I mean? It makes all the difference in the world. But that understanding softened everything. See what I mean? So, understanding. And where does it come from? Well, it comes from our center. It comes from within. It's when you stand back from the flesh, when you stand back from your angers and your resentments, and stand back from your selfishness, and stand back from your lusts, okay, and observe them, then you have a little bit of control, don't you? You do. You don't have to become angry and lose yourself in the anger. You don't have to indulge yourself to the hilt and eat a whole bag of potato chips or a whole box of chocolates. You don't have to have 10 drinks or 10 glasses of wine or something. See what I mean? Your understanding restrains you. It's a beautiful thing. Now this understanding grows and grows and grows and grows so that you become